Hi, I'm Glenn Hughes.
And I'm Ed Muzio.
For 3 decades, I've been working inside a publicly traded company.
And for over a decade, I've been an entrepreneur supporting companies like Glenn's from the outside.
In this series, we look at the problems and challenges of the modern workplace
and provide our ideas and advice
from the inside
and out. Last week I was talking to a new manager and he was looking at his new calendar of meetings and asked me, do I have to have all these meetings? How often do I have to have meetings? How often should I have meetings? Glenn, how often should I have meetings?
What kind of meeting? There's so many different types of meetings. Did he express what the meeting types were?
Well, in his case, it was really, I think, overwhelmed with the vast number of different ones. So I think you're talking about the right first step, which is, let's sort these out. Some are management meetings, some are problem-solving meetings, some are one-on-ones with the team, probably other kinds of meetings as well. Starting to sort through that, I think, is the first step, right?
Right. You know, and I'll just take one as an example. I think delineating what types of meetings you're having and what you're accomplishing with them is clearly the first step. Some meetings have become ceremonial over years, and maybe you can get rid of them and nothing happens from it. An email will do the same thing. One-on-ones are one we talk about a lot, especially if you're a new manager and you've got 10 or 20 employees. They can really take up a lot of your schedule.
That can eat your whole schedule, yeah.
Yeah, and so one of my conversations with that is it depends on the work. First off, what's the maturity level of your group? Junior people maybe need more one-on-one engagement than senior people. The other thing is what's the type of work? If your goals are not changing often and you have good feedback systems and you're able to track progress and all that without a meeting, you can have less frequent meetings. But if you're constantly churning on the deliverables, on the measurements, and there aren't ways to have a dashboard and it needs to happen in a conversation, I mean, a new hire in a churning environment, for the first 90 days, I may want to meet with daily.
Right.
As opposed to a senior person I sit down with once a quarter.
Well, and even when you talk about the churn in the environment relative to the management meetings, so in Iterate I write about sort of these rhythm meetings. You need your management meetings to happen on a predictable schedule. It may not be once a week, it might be once a month, but when someone comes up with a problem, they need to know where the next meeting is to take it to, otherwise they have to invent what to do with that problem. So the level of churn is part of the guidance about how often you need to pull the team together and say, how are things changing, what's going on, what's new. It has to do with how big the flux is in the work. Add that to the individual level, sort of individually and collectively, about how much they know about the work, how much guidance they need. I think that's where you start to get your answer. Obviously, it's not one size fits all, right? You have to figure out your answer for your people and your situation.
Yeah, duration becomes a big question too, especially when you're trying to really align people and have deep thought and conversations. You know, a lot of times we try to make up for a one-day meeting by having 30-minute meetings spread out over a 6-week period.
It's really different, yeah.
And you don't get the work done. You don't get the deep thought. You don't get the layers. I recently held a 2-day offsite with my team, and a new member of my team was a senior leader in this company. And he commented to me after the event, you know, I was the kind of guy who thought offsites were kind of a boondoggle, right? Mm-hmm. That you go off and play a bunch of games and that they weren't worth the investment. And I held all these really intense 1-hour status meetings every week. He said to me that after attending our 2-day offsite, he feels like if he had done that, he maybe could have canceled his weekly status meetings and only had monthly meetings, because the alignment achieved in that 2-day period was much more than he could accomplish in this little soundbite environment he created.
Compared to your company, I am a tiny little entity, right? I have a tiny little company, and I pay for stuff not out of a budget, out of my pocket. I hold an annual face-to-face meeting with everybody on my team, everybody who's involved in my team, for the same reason. I need statusing during the year to see how things are going, we need to check in, but there's no replacement for sitting down in person and going, what are we really doing here, guys? Yeah. Are we aligned? Are these pieces working together? What do you think about what's going on?
Yeah.
So the face-to-face thing is critical. On the flip side, the regular statusing is critical. And then the third thing is problem solving. And what I've seen happen there is we start a problem solving meeting to solve a problem, and then it kind of perpetuates. Right. And those are the ones where, back to your point about what's the meeting for, write the purpose on the wall. When you've achieved the purpose, cross it out and go home. Right. Stop having the meeting. Otherwise, you do end up with this sort of endless litany of meetings that you can't get out of, because everyone can start a meeting and no one can stop one.
Yeah, that sort of guides me to 2 points. The first is our status meeting, we do what we call an instant agenda. We hold the meeting every week because I want to see what there is to talk about, but I don't dictate an agenda. We walk in, we go around the table in 2 minutes and ask, what do you have to talk about this week? What do you need to talk about? What do you need to talk about? And then based on what they have, I direct the meeting around the conversation. It's set for an hour, Sometimes we run a little over. Often we finish in 20 or 30 minutes. We go, that's it, everybody go. We don't expand the content in order to fill the time.
Oh, that raises a good point, which is the rest of my advice about regular management meetings is exactly that. Don't force the meeting, and certainly don't rotate through people giving updates. What you need to do is have everyone look at it and say, is the future today different than what we thought the future would be? And if so, is there something to talk about? And that's what goes on the agenda. And if there's nothing to talk about, good, go on with your lives. If there's a lot to talk about, figure out what the certain priority is. That's the advice about this regular meeting, is have it, but don't force it.
Well, that goes to what my second point, which was about collaboration. For me, meetings are largely about collaboration, getting the people in the room together. And too often it ends up being a serial one-on-one, where I say, I don't have time to meet with all of you one-on-one, so I'm going to sit you all in a room together.
One-on-one with an audience.
And I'm going to talk to you and then talk to you and talk to you and talk to you and talk to you and waste everyone's time while I talk. And you can always tell when those are happening because everyone's on their laptop doing their work while someone else is talking. And I have a saying for facilitation, I never pay 20 smart people to listen to one person talk. So what I want is collaboration.
If you're going to put them in the room, I would argue the same thing. Do it that way.
Do it so they collaborate, right?
Which means don't do one-on-one topics, for one thing.
Don't do one-on-one topics. And often, to your point about ending the meeting, is we continue to collaborate when collaboration has no value. So we bring them all in, they do the thing, and one of my pet peeves with collaboration is people think it's motherhood and apple pie and it's always good. No, collaboration is when a number of people come together to create something that no single one of them could have alone. But then there's a point where you reach where someone just has to go do stuff. Right? So break up the collaboration, give the solo work,
and go.
And when you need to, come back together.
Right. On my management work, that looks like collaboration to figure out how to share resources. But then once you have your resources to do your work, we get out of your way and let you do it. And you can come back if you need more or less or something's different. That's a key thing. Don't try to collaborate all of it. The other piece of that is collaboration works better in small-ish groups. So we think 7 to 9 people is a good number for collaboration. You can have a management meeting with 25 people and give brief status updates, but if you've got a problem to solve, you got to charter it out. You cannot have 25 people collaborating over a problem. There's not enough airtime in the room to get people on board. People check out and it becomes not productive.
So it sounds like we're arriving at a conclusion that frequency isn't the driving factor in holding meetings. It's the intention of the meeting, who needs to be there, and what you're trying to accomplish.
And the last thing I would add is, for management, meetings are where you get a lot of your work done. So we also don't want to label it as a bad thing to be in a meeting. It's about what you're trying to accomplish, and whatever meeting gets you there is the right meeting to have.
There's very little that's better in the world, than in the work world anyway, than a really effective meeting. We've been in them, and a fantastic meeting sets the stage for fantastic work.
It does, and we know that brains working together in the right way can produce better output. So I guess that's the question, is if you're looking at your meetings, how are you managing your meeting so that it's brains working together for better output, as opposed to people getting together for getting together's sake?